Welcome to HardScript.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it so softly I almost missed it. We just need space. Emotionally. Like she was suggesting we repaint the living room, not rewrite a marriage. My name's Ryan Hale. I'm 38. Civil engineer. I build things that last. Bridges, foundations, structures meant to stand against pressure. But that night, sitting across from my wife in our kitchen with her Starbucks cup half empty and her phone face down, I realized I'd spent years reinforcing everything except us. We'd been married 9 years. Solid years. Predictable ones. The kind of marriage that looked fine from the outside. Joint savings, weekend Costco runs, dinner at Applebee's once a week. But lately, Emily had been different. Always on her iPhone, smiling at something she wouldn't show me. Working late on client revisions she never used to mention. It started with small things. New gym clothes, early morning workouts, then late evening ones. I didn't question it. She said exercise cleared her head. I believed her, because trust is what keeps the walls from cracking. 2 weeks later, I came home early from a site inspection. Her laptop was open on the couch. A message popped up from someone named Tyler G. The preview line said, "Proud of you today. You really pushed yourself." Nothing explicit, but the way my chest tightened told me everything. That night, she came home flushed, glowing from her workout. She talked about form and endurance, about how Tyler really listens. I nodded, ate my dinner, and said nothing. That's when the freeze began. She stopped kissing me goodnight. Conversations became logistics, bills, groceries, deadlines. She replaced warmth with politeness, passion with progress. It was subtle, like the house losing heat 1 degree at a time. When she finally said those words, "We just need space." Emotionally, I didn't argue. I just looked at her and said, "Then don't be surprised when I vanish physically." She blinked, maybe thinking I was being dramatic. But I wasn't. Engineers don't do drama. We do plans. That night, I sat in the truck outside our house and made a list on a legal pad. Lease a new place. Reroute paychecks. Transfer utilities. Quiet, methodical steps. Inside, I saw her through the kitchen window, scrolling her phone, smiling at the screen. Probably Tyler. I turned the key in the ignition, the headlights washed over the driveway, and for the first time in months, I felt something like control. She wanted space. She'd get it. And when she finally realized what silence really sounded like, it wouldn't be peaceful. It would be permanent. The morning after she asked for emotional space, she made pancakes like nothing had happened. She smiled faintly, asked about my schedule, mentioned a new client she was taking on. I watched her move around the kitchen in her oversized hoodie, the one I bought her on our trip to Denver. It used to smell like home. Now it smelled like distance. I left for work early that day, but I didn't go straight to the site. I stopped by a small apartment complex on the edge of town. Brick exterior, quiet, clean. The leasing agent handed me the keys to a 1-bedroom with a view of the river. "Move-in ready," she said. I nodded. That was the point. At work, I ran numbers, approved drafts, answered calls. No one noticed anything different. Engineers don't show cracks. But beneath the calm, I was moving pieces, rerouting accounts, updating mailing addresses, calling the bank. Each task small, invisible, permanent. That evening, Emily was already dressed for the gym when I got home. Tight leggings, hair in a high ponytail, a soft perfume she'd never worn for me. She said she'd be home late, that Tyler had suggested a new endurance session. She said it so casually, like he was her coworker, not her new orbit. I didn't respond, just said, "Drive safe." While she was gone, I packed the first box. Nothing dramatic, just essentials. Documents, tools, a few shirts. I labeled the box A1 because I like order. She'd never notice. She never opened my side of the closet anymore. Later, I checked our shared calendar on her laptop. She deleted every date night for the next month. Replaced them with gym sessions. 6 days a week. I stared at the screen for a long minute, then copied the entries onto my phone, not because I cared, but because I'd need them later. When she came home, she was humming. I asked how her session went. She said, "He pushes me, but in a good way." Then she smiled, the kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. I wanted to hate her for it, but I didn't. I just studied her face, memorizing the version of her that was already gone. That night, she fell asleep first. I lay there listening to her slow breathing, her phone lighting up every few minutes with messages she thought I couldn't hear. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just awake. Fully awake for the first time in years. The next few weeks became a quiet exercise in separation. I moved like an architect dismantling his own structure, carefully, methodically, one beam at a time. I told her I was taking on longer projects at work, which gave me more time to set things in motion. She didn't question it. When someone's heart is elsewhere, they stop noticing what you're building behind closed doors. Every morning, I left before sunrise. I stopped for black coffee at Dunkin', parked near the site, and sat in silence while the city woke up. I thought about how routine used to feel comforting. Now it felt like camouflage. At the new apartment, I replaced the locks, installed a small desk, and left a set of clothes in the closet. Each move small enough to stay invisible. Every evening, I'd go home to the house we still technically shared and pretend nothing had changed. She'd be on the couch, scrolling Amazon, a candle from Target burning beside her. The scent used to mean peace. Now it meant distance. She started wearing makeup to the gym. Lip gloss, mascara, things she'd stopped bothering with for months. One night, she came home late, hair damp, cheeks flushed. She said her workout ran long. I didn't ask questions. That was the quiet shift she didn't notice. I'd stopped trying to understand her. I checked our shared account one evening and noticed recurring charges from a cafe 2 blocks from her gym. I went once, just to see. Tyler was there, laughing with someone. Emily's favorite drink, an almond milk latte, sat across from him, still steaming. I didn't need to see her face to know it was hers. I left before they noticed me. Back home, she asked if I'd eaten. I said I wasn't hungry. She smiled absently and went upstairs. The house felt bigger than ever, hollow in all the wrong places. That night, I transferred the last of my savings into the new account, the one she didn't know existed. I didn't feel guilt, only precision. Like I was tightening the final bolts of a bridge before opening it to traffic. She thought she was creating emotional space. What she didn't realize was that I'd already turned it into a physical plan. And soon, she'd learn how silence can sound when it's deliberate. It was the third week when she started noticing the shift. I'd stopped filling the air with small talk, stopped asking how her day was, stopped pretending I didn't see the cracks forming. She'd ask if I was okay, and I'd say, fine. Always calm, always short. The fewer words I used, the louder they became. One night, I came home late from work, though I hadn't been at work. I'd been at the new apartment, setting up furniture from Costco, measuring curtains, making the place functional. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch, laptop open, editing something for a client. She looked up and smiled weakly, as if she wasn't sure if she still should. Then she asked, "You're quiet lately. Everything good?" I said, "Everything's fine." She stared a second longer, then went back to her screen. That was the moment I knew she'd chosen comfort over connection. Silence didn't scare her anymore. It suited her. The next morning, she left early for the gym. I sat at the kitchen table and scrolled through old photos of us. Trips, birthdays, that first house project we did together. Every image had a version of her that doesn't exist anymore. By the time she returned, smiling and sweaty, I deleted them all. She mentioned Tyler casually that night, like he was part of her daily routine. "He said my form's getting better," she said. "He really understands how to push people." She said it the way someone describes a mentor, not realizing she'd just admitted emotional dependence. I didn't react. I just made a note of the time, 8:47 p.m., because details matter when you're documenting the end of something. That weekend, she suggested a short break, just a few weeks apart, to clear our heads. She looked relieved saying it, like she'd finally found words that justified her drift. I nodded, said it might be good for us. She smiled softly, thinking I agreed. She didn't realize she'd just given me permission to disappear. That night, after she fell asleep, I packed another box. Shoes, documents, and that hoodie she loved, the one she used to wear when she missed me. I folded it neatly, left it on her chair. The next time she reached for me, all she'd find would be fabric and silence. The morning she said she needed space. The air in the kitchen felt colder than usual. She made oatmeal, barely touched it, and avoided eye contact. I could see the words forming in her head long before she said them. She said she still cared about me, that she just needed to find herself again. That phrase, find herself, always means someone else is helping them look. I listened quietly, hands folded on the table, as she talked about how disconnected she felt. How maybe a little distance would help us both breathe. She said she didn't want to lose me, but she needed to understand what she wanted. I nodded slowly. She looked relieved, mistaking composure for agreement. When she stood to leave, she touched my shoulder and said, "Don't take this the wrong way, Ryan. I just need space. Emotionally." I looked at her and said evenly, "Then don't be surprised when I vanish physically." Her smile faltered, like she thought she misheard me. But I didn't repeat it. I just stood, rinsed my coffee mug, and left for work. That was the last real conversation we ever had. By noon, I'd submitted the rental paperwork for my new place. By evening, my clothes were hanging in that closet by the river, my desk was set up, and my laptop open to new beginnings. I didn't tell anyone. Not my coworkers, not my parents. Some things are cleaner when they stay quiet. Over the next few days, I returned to the house only to gather what mattered. Important documents. My grandmother's watch. The framed degree from Purdue. Everything else could stay. She texted once, asking if I'd be home for dinner. I replied, "Not tonight." She didn't ask why. 3 nights later, I closed the door behind me for the final time. I didn't slam it. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe her an explanation for the silence she'd started. I sat in the car and watched the house through the windshield. The lights in the kitchen glowed soft and warm. A shadow moved across the blinds, hers. She picked up that old hoodie from the chair, the one I'd left behind on purpose. She pressed it to her face like it could still give her what she'd frozen out. I started the engine and drove away without looking back. The first night in the new apartment was silent in a way that didn't feel empty. It felt earned. The walls were bare, the air smelled faintly of fresh paint, and the only furniture was a bed, a desk, and a small table. It wasn't home yet, but it was mine. I checked my phone once, no messages from her. None expected. I turned it face down and went to sleep. The next morning, I woke early and went for a run along the river. It had been years since I ran without purpose, without a schedule, without anyone waiting on me. The cold air burned my lungs, but it also cleared the fog that had settled in my head for months. By the end of that week, I'd moved everything essential. I closed the joint bank account, switched utilities, redirected mail. Each task felt like sealing another door behind me. She didn't reach out for several days. When she finally did, it was a short text. "Can we talk?" I read it twice, then set the phone down. Some words don't deserve replies. At work, no one knew what had happened. They noticed I seemed calmer, more focused. One of the younger engineers asked if I'd started meditating. I said something like that. That weekend, I drove past the old house. Her car was in the driveway, next to a truck I didn't recognize. The curtains in the living room were open. She was sitting inside, laughing, head tilted back. A man stood near her, fit, tan, easy confidence. Tyler, the trainer. I didn't stop. I didn't honk. I just watched for a few seconds, long enough to confirm what I already knew. Then I drove off, the sound of tires on gravel loud in the quiet. That night, I deleted her number from my phone. Not blocked, deleted. Blocking means you're still angry. Deleting means you've accepted the silence. She thought she'd taken the air out of our marriage gently, without blame. But she didn't understand that when you freeze a man built from structure, he doesn't thaw. He rebuilds elsewhere. And soon, she'd see what that looked like. Not in words, but in motion. A month passed before I saw her again. It happened by accident. Or maybe it didn't. I'd joined the same gym. Not out of spite, but because it was close to my new place, and I needed structure. The smell of metal and chalk had always felt like order to me. Predictable. Honest. The first morning I walked in, she was there. Same routine. Same tight ponytail. Same leggings I used to find on our dryer. Tyler spotted me first. His smile faltered for half a second before he hid it behind that professional mass trainers wear. She turned when she felt the shift in the room. Her eyes met mine. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. I didn't break the stare. I just nodded once, calm, polite, indifferent. Then I moved to the other side of the gym, started my warm-up, and didn't look back. Every motion was deliberate, controlled lifts, steady breath, no wasted energy. I could feel her glancing at me between sets. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of curiosity. Either way, she was the one watching now. Tyler avoided eye contact, his voice lower than usual as he coached her. I didn't need to imagine what he was thinking. Men like him rely on invisibility until they get caught in the light. And right now, I was the light. After my session, I wiped down the bench, grabbed my keys, and walked toward the exit. She stepped into my path, holding a water bottle, voice small. She said, "Ryan, can we talk?" I looked at her like she was a stranger asking for directions. Calm, detached. I said, "There's nothing left to talk about." Then I walked past her, out into the cold air, leaving the scent of iron and sweat behind. In the parking lot, I sat in the car for a moment, hands steady on the wheel. I didn't feel triumph or anger, just clarity. She had wanted emotional space. Now she had it, in cubic miles. And the silence that followed me home that day didn't feel lonely. It felt earned, like standing on a bridge you designed yourself, knowing it would never collapse again. After that morning, the gym became neutral ground. She came earlier, I came later. Still, sometimes our paths crossed. Each time, the silence between us said more than any conversation could. She looked smaller somehow, softer around the edges. Tyler kept his distance when I was there. Maybe she'd told him, or maybe he could read what my calmness really meant. Men like him understand physical strength, but they don't understand silence. Weeks passed. My life settled into a new rhythm. Work, training, sleep. No noise. No guessing. My peace didn't come from forgetting her. It came from realizing I no longer needed to. One evening, I was finishing my workout when I saw her standing near the exit, holding her phone like it weighed too much. She watched me rack the last set, eyes red, posture unsure. She said she'd been thinking a lot, that she missed what we had. She said Tyler had moved on, like that justified anything. I just listened, arms crossed, heart steady. When she finished, she said, "You didn't even fight for us." I looked at her and said quietly, "You froze me out slowly." I left loudly. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. There wasn't an argument left to make. I walked past her and out into the night. The air was cold, sharp, honest. The kind that wakes you up. Over the next few days, she texted a few times, apologies, memories, promises of change. I didn't respond. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting the version of me that survived her silence. I moved deeper into my new life. Started taking on bigger projects, longer hours. Bought a small truck, my first real investment since the split. Simple, steady progress. Then, one Friday evening, I saw her again. Not at the gym this time. At the grocery store. She stood in the aisle holding the same brand of protein bars I used to buy. She froze when she saw me. No smile, no greeting. Just that haunted look of someone who realized they'd traded permanence for attention. I nodded politely and walked past. She turned slightly, watching me go, still holding the box she didn't really want. Some people look for closure. Others build it. I was already done building mine. After the grocery store, she didn't text again. Maybe she finally understood that silence wasn't a weapon anymore. It was a verdict. The kind that doesn't need to be spoken to be final. Winter came early that year. The city slowed down, streets frosted white, everything quieter. I started getting up before sunrise, driving my truck out past the river to watch the cranes lift steel beams into place. There was something about watching a structure take shape from nothing that reminded me of who I was before all of this. One morning, after a long meeting downtown, I stopped at Starbucks for coffee. I saw her through the window before I even walked in. Sitting alone by the counter, same black coat, her laptop open but untouched. Her hair was shorter now, and she looked thinner, like life had been sanding her down piece by piece. I could have left, but I didn't. I walked in, ordered my coffee, stood a few feet away. She looked up, startled for a second, then tried to smile. I nodded politely. That was all. The barista called my name. I took my cup and walked out without looking back. I didn't need to. I could feel her watching me through the glass, holding that empty cup like it meant something. Later that night, when I came home, there was an envelope taped to my apartment door. Her handwriting. Inside was a short note. She said she missed the quiet mornings, the sound of my truck leaving for work, the smell of coffee before sunrise. She said she'd been wrong about needing space, that she just wanted to be seen again. I folded the letter once and set it on the counter. I didn't tear it, didn't answer, didn't even reread it. Some words belong to a life that's already been demolished. Instead, I opened the window and let the cold air fill the room. The city outside hummed, steady and alive. My phone buzzed once. Work message, nothing personal. That was fine. She'd wanted to find herself. And in the process, she lost the version of me that would have waited. Now, I wasn't waiting for anyone. I was building again, this time for me. I didn't hear from her again after the letter. Not a text, not a call. Just silence. The kind she used to weaponize, now turned back on her. I didn't gloat, didn't replay moments in my head. I just lived. Spring came slow that year. The snow melted off the river, revealing the steel skeleton of a bridge my firm had been designing for months. I spent long hours on site, running calculations, watching crews bring my blueprints to life. There was a rhythm to it. Math, precision, consequence. No guesswork. No emotion. Just action. One afternoon, as I was heading out, I saw her standing at the edge of the site, near the observation fence. She looked out of place, fragile against the hum of machinery. She said she'd heard about the project in the local paper, that she wanted to see what I'd been working on. I told her she was looking at it. She said she'd been going to therapy, trying to understand herself. She said she realized she'd replaced connection with distraction. I didn't respond. Some lessons don't need confirmation. After a pause, she said, "You look different." I told her I was just the same man, minus the noise. She nodded, eyes glassy. Then she whispered, "I miss the quiet." I said, "That's the difference, Emily. I built peace. You just found silence." She blinked hard, like she wanted to argue, but nothing came. Finally, she said goodbye, soft, almost like a memory fading mid-sentence. Then she turned and walked away. I didn't watch her go this time. That evening, I stood on the half-finished bridge, watching the water move beneath the beams. The air smelled of steel, wet concrete, and new beginnings. For the first time in years, I felt the kind of calm that doesn't come from control, but from release. Later, I drove to the gym again. Tyler was gone. She wasn't there either. Just the sound of weights hitting the floor and the low hum of music. I trained until the noise matched my heartbeat, steady and exact. Some men fight back loud. Others rebuild quietly. She froze me out softly. I left loudly. And in that silence, I finally heard myself again. Been through it. When they crossed a line, and you made sure they felt it.